Welcome to another episode of the Misfit Podcast. My guest today has one of the most interesting life stories you'll get on the island. From being Brad Pitt's body double to casually surviving getting shot and stabbed multiple times, and later on winning multiple world titles. My guest today is none other than Mr. Scott Dixon. Scott, thank you so much for being here today.
No problem, James. Pleasure's all mine.
How are you, Angus? You're hungry.
Starving, James. Absolutely starving.
So when was your last meal?
My last meal, well, I did eat last night. Very small. I just salad last night, chicken salad last night, and then that'll be me until about 7:15 p.m. this evening.
Can you explain why you're not eating?
Right, okay. As you know, I'm a professional fighter, so I'm going to box tomorrow night at the Domin Hotel in Aura, and tonight we have the public weigh-in at the Domin, so I have to be, the agreed boxing weight is 80 kilos. Right now I'm about 80.8, something like that. So I have to dry out now, cut the fluids, no food for sure, and then be bang on the weight tonight because that's the agreed weight for the fight.
I mean, you could alternatively just take a bunch of laxatives and just demolish your inner system.
Yeah, absolutely, but it would make you weak at the same time, you know, so hey.
Well, yeah, I mean, you'll never know. Have you ever had a scuffle at a weigh-in?
Yeah, listen.
I always see that online.
There's loads of trash talk and stuff like that, but 9 out of 10 times it's for the camera, you understand?
Yeah, of course.
You know, fighters respect each other, James.
Right, so I have to ask.
Yes.
So I'm seeing you've had some more ink work done since the last time I've seen you. So you're liking the hair area when it comes to tattoos.
Yep.
So I'm seeing your new mohawk tattoo.
Yes,
King
because I haven't had any hair since the 90s, so I fancied something that kind of, you know.
I mean, some people just tattue like hair dots or something.
Exactly.
But you're
I just go to full Monty, you know.
Yeah.
Nice Mohican.
Yeah, exactly. You know, like same as me. Like I can't grow a beard, but rather than a beard transplant, I can just get like Bugs Bunny tattooed or something.
Absolutely, why not, James? Why not?
So, what can you tell me about the tattoo on top of your left eyebrow?
What does it say again? El Ferros.
Yes.
El Ferros. Well, there used to be a fighter called Ferocious Fernando Vargas. He was a great Mexican fighter. I used to be a big fan. I used to watch all his fights growing up and what have you. And his nickname was El Ferros. So it just kind of was the same style of fighter, you know, and I thought, I'm going to get that, show my love for Fernando Vargas.
So who would you say in your opinion is the GOAT, the all-time?
The great, I would go back. I go back a few eras, James. You know, like Sugar Ray Robinson. I don't know if you can recall who he was.
I've heard of Sugar Ray Robinson.
Sugar Ray Robinson. I like the old school fighters, Willie Pep.
So the mainstream greats when we're talking Muhammad Ali, Mike Tyson.
Muhammad Ali was definitely one of the greatest, but not the greatest for me. I think if you look at other fighters' records and lives and careers, that's how you really...
What do you think of Mayweather?
Fantastic. He got in the game, took all the money out of the game, retired with his faculties intact. So, listen, he done what he had to do. He's definitely one of the best. One of the best.
Fair enough. Who are you up against?
I'm fighting a guy called Ivan Bria. He was born in Russia, now resides in Italy. So I don't know too much about him. I know he's a young kid, 28, 29.
You ever find that intimidating when you have a young gun, even if they don't have a fraction of your experience?
Well, definitely, James, because they're trying to take my scalp. You know, I mean, I'm experienced, having over 70 pro fights now. So I mean, and I've won multiple titles. So I mean, they're looking for that scalp, that Scott Dixon on the record. But hey, there's still plenty of stuff left in the basement. So I'll give this young gun a run for his money.
Nice. Well, all the best to you on that. What can you tell me about your first amateur fight?
I actually lost my first amateur fight.
Did you?
I fought a guy, gave a lot.
When was this, by the way? What year are we talking?
1983, James.
83.
I was 7 years old when I had my first amateur fight.
Seven.
I was training from 5 because my grandfather, Toby Dixon, was a famous boxing coach. And he was like a saviour of lost souls. We grew up in a rough house in the state, just outside Glasgow, a town called Hamilton. And my granddad, you know, Yeah, he worked as a bus driver. And he was constantly helping kids out in the community, juvenile delinquents, kids from the deprivation of society, you know.
Which part of the UK are we talking about here?
Just outside Glasgow, Hamilton,
Glasgow.
Scotland, yeah.
Was it a rough area back in the
rough
back in the
house
day?
in the state, bro. You know, very rough. You know, and there was only a few ways out, but that kind of place, it was like football, either you're a top footballer, a boxer, or crime, you know, so my granddad used to do a lot of work in the community, taking kids off the street, he had the boxing gym that he ran local, funded by the local council.
So your granddad was a coach.
He was a saviour of lost souls, you know, he was my hero. He's a remarkable man. He passed away a few years ago, and there's a big void there, James, you know.
So I remember you posting a lot. That was your granddad?
That was my grandfather, Toby.
Not your dad?
No.
Okay.
My dad took off and I was told he took the easy option, you know.
Ah, okay. Thought that was your dad.
He headed for the hills.
And so we're talking about your granddad.
My grandfather.
Toby Dixon.
Toby Dixon, yes.
So he made his own waves he made his own waves back there.
Famous boxing coach, you know.
Did he train you?
He trained me from day one. Put my first gloves on me. Probably started training me. I remember because I used to live here. My mother and I used to live with my grandparents. So all my early memories are waiting for grandfather finishing his shift on the buses, driving the buses, and he'd come home and I'd have my little gloves, throw them on the floor. He'd come in, hold the pads for me. I can always remember, you know. That was my...
What he... so let's go back just a few years ago. Would you bring him along to watch your bouts?
Exactly. When I did, you know, the trials and tribulations that I've endured in life, James, you know, it's public knowledge. And when I did win the world title over here, 2012 in Malta, that was probably my grandfather's greatest moment, you know, like, because I've still got the footage of videos when they announced me as the new world champion after all what had happened to me in my life. And you see his face on the camera, you know, his hands held into the air, you know, like, it's just a joy. Even the pictures as well, it says 1,000 words, James, you know. You've
had a ton of fights,
yes,
both pro and amateur. Mm. What was your favourite one?
My favourite one?
That one that just gave you all the rush that made you think to yourself, oh yeah, this is why I do this.
Well, my favourite one actually is when I fought for the British welterweight title. I was like 19 fights, 20 fights unbeaten, and I hadn't broke right into the big time yet. You know, that was my initiation into the big league. And I fought the British champion. He had like 30 fights, unbeaten. And there's a famous belt in the UK called the Lord Lonsdale Challenge belt. It's the British title belt. It's actually made of solid gold. The belt's like 80k, 80,000 for this belt, you know.
Jesus.
You have to win it and defend it another 3 times now before you keep a copy. It's really prestigious, you know. So it was this guy, Derek Roach's last defence on the belt. And listen, I never won the fight, but the fight was voted Fight of the Year, 1999.
Fight of the Year.
And then Fight of the Decade in the 90s. Best British domestic title fight. 5 knockdown thriller. First round, I put him on the floor. I knocked him down twice. He knocked me down
round
3
one.
times. Round 1, the first punch I threw, I put the champion on the floor. And if you could see this video and the footage of it, I mean, the commentators are going crazy because it was just so exciting. It was just yo-yo fight up and down. And, you know, I really had to dig deep. After that fight, for me and my camp, we thought we won the fight. Even the after-fight interview, Derek, Mr. Roach, proclaims that, listen, I thought Scott Dixon won that fight. But that was just how the judges saw it, you know. And we're still good friends to this day. You know, we speak often on the phone. But it was just my greatest fight. That really brought me into the big league. Wow. After that, I could sign my own check because everybody knew my worth and that was me launched. Now,
I have to say, you obviously, people like you are the reason that there's going to be another 7-year-old who wants to get those gloves up, going to boxing. Plus, now that boxing has been more in the mainstream than ever, there's a lot of people who maybe over-glamorize the sport, and maybe some people aren't aware that some people could get seriously hurt or even dead. Has that ever happened in your circuit of... has that ever happened in your circuit?
Mum, I had my first pro fight Friday the 13th of October 1995.
Friday the 13th?
Now, I haven't boxed on Friday the 13th until tomorrow night again. We're going by, 27 years, something like that, if I'm right. So I haven't boxed on Friday the 13th. Now, if I recall back to my first encounter with Friday the 13th, I won my first professional fight at 51 kilos. I'm still a baby. And but my best friend, James Murray, was the fight after me on that evening, and he died.
Died?
In the ring, Friday the 13th of October 1995. So, I mean, so when this fight and this number, this date came up, I was a bit, but listen, I have to lay my ghost to rest, that's it.
Yeah.
I have to put them away,
Yeah. Plus, I mean, it's a date.
I did vow I would never fight on that date again. But you know what? That was the start of my career. Now, this is me near the end of my career.
Yeah.
So I thought, let's put them to rest now.
Exactly.
So this one will be for James,
So how can that I'll tell you,
James was fighting for the British title against a gentleman called Drew Docherty, who was a very good friend of mine. And it was a British title fight. It was for the coveted Lonsdale belt. And, I mean, this was the 10th round of the fight, 9th or 10th round, I can't recall properly, but round about there. And for me and everybody else in the arena, James was in front, 2 or 3 rounds in front. He was going to be crowned the next British champion. And he took a step back from the action. He got a punch on the shoulder. Nothing, just a tap, like somebody playing with you in a pub. And he moved back a couple of steps, went down on his knees, banged the canvas 3 times and rolled over. Boom, he had the blood clot in the brain. So boxing's the heart business. I mean, it's a very serious business. It's not like you see on television, you watch them Rocky movies. I mean, don't get me wrong, Rocky movies created more champions than any other trainer, or, but it's a serious business.
There should be that awareness that...
I don't think you just wake up one day and say, I'm going to be a fighter. Forget all that Jake Paul bollocks. The guy's going to get killed in a ring if he keeps it up. But we all know he's paying people and he's paid in his own role.
Do you believe that?
Oh, 100%. He couldn't box eggs, that guy. No. You don't know a left hook from a fish hook, James. The guy, believe me, bro.
But here's the thing. Like, he's... Okay, the people he's fighting, I know he had a fight with a retired boxer.
He's not fought a boxer yet. It's manipulated. He's not fought one boxer
a retired...
He's fighting MMA guys.
But shouldn't that be itself be impressive considering how absolutely new he is to the sport?
Definitely, but see, be honest, even though he's fighting those guys, MMA, they might excel at what they do in the MMA world, but they don't know how to hold their hands up. Plus, I also think that we're paid anyway for that end result. Definitely. They don't even shape up nice. God, my 8-year-old shapes up better than some of those guys.
So
it's manipulated for sure.
What do you think of Conor McGregor's entry into the boxing ring? I'm sure you have your opinions on that.
Listen, McGregor deserves it a bit more. One, he's Celtic. So, hey, you've got to give him the benefit of the doubt,
let's remove the bias here.
Sorry, James. Sorry, excuse me, James.
Let's remove the bias here.
You know what I mean, mate? It's in the blood, bro. Plus he drinks whiskey now. But no, for Conor McGregor, I say, because he's a real athlete. He really puts the work in. He became the top of his game in the MMA world. He deserved every single thing that he done. I mean, he seems to be going a bit extreme these days. But hey, listen, if you've got that money, live your life the way you want to now, so we can't judge.
But the thing is, I ask these because when you see, Conor McGregor taking on the ring, the Paul brothers, it really puts into question what is the state of the sport right now.
Listen, it's becoming a circus now with social media and what have you. I mean, it's like I say, you can't just wake up one day and say, I'm going to be a fighter. I don't believe that anybody can do that. Although money talks, if you have money, you have power, I'm sure you can open a few doors and cut a few corners. But that's not the way it should be, you know? Because boxers used to come from, like I said, the deprivation of society. They were hungry, they were killers. I mean, you would never have walked into a gym 30 years ago, 40 years ago, and said, one, you were looking for a PT, I want to do a box fit class. In gyms, the bent noses and scars, and you'd be terrified.
Cauliflower ears.
Yeah, you'd be terrified if you go in the gym. Boy, everybody snorting, you know, screaming. Nah, totally different world.
Teeth all over the place.
Yeah, absolutely. Bloodbath.
Just an absolute bloodbath.
Exactly.
Now I have to ask.
But nowadays, I mean, times change, and it is what it is. We have to move forward. We call it progress, I guess. Yeah.
You talk about like where you came from and the deprivation of
but in
Hamilton.
any boxing gym.
But I have to ask. I'm seeing you in Hamilton in these rough areas to choreographing fights in Brad Pitt's movie Snatch. How did that happen?
All about being in the right place at the right time, James. I was in London. I mean, in my early 20s, I moved to London to further my career. I think it was like I said, 19, 20 fights unbeaten in the professional game. But my granddad kind of let me go. He said, listen, I can teach you so much, but to make that next step into the greatness, the big league, you need to go and see a whole different concepts, i.e. go to London. There's tough, rough gyms down there. So I found myself in the Peacock Gym in East London. And I signed a contract with them. I was based there. I was managing the gym there. It was a big, massive gym.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but over like 15,000 members at any one time. It's like a 4 or 5 story gym. Absolute fantastic. Living quarters, everything there under one roof. A real proper old school training camp. And but you used to get the good and the bad and the ugly frequent that gym, you know. You had doctors, you had lawyers, you had policemen, you had gangsters, all in the one pot. You know, and they all go on.
All walks of life in this one building.
You never believe it. And then in the gym, they'll all be nice to each other, and they leave the gym, they go their own ways, they do their own things. That was just the way it is. That's the beauty of boxing, of a boxing workout. Even it brings people together. Like I said, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So there used to be a lot of movie directors and stuff frequenting the gym, looking for rough, tough, nasty characters, if you like, you know. So I was hitting the punch bag one day, and I see this gentleman watching me, and it was actually Guy Ritchie. Yeah.
Guy Ritchie?
Yeah, Guy Ritchie, and I see him looking. I had no idea who he was, you know. And I went, can I have me? Always rough. Fighters are always, back then, I'm at peace with myself now, right? But back then, I was always fighting with myself. I don't think, you can't be civilised and be a fighter. I was a nasty piece of work, you know. Not bullying people, nothing like that, but just a short fuse, a short temper, James, you know. But you have to keep that anger at boiling point if you want to be a fighter. It's, you know what I mean? Like I say, you don't just wake up and say, I'm going to be a fighter. Pff, rubbish.
So he saw you?
He's watching me. And I went, can I help you, mate? He went, yeah. He introduced himself. Me, aggressive as always. And he introduced himself. Yeah. He says, how tall are you? I said, same height as Jesus. He went, what, 6 foot? I always say the same thing. Yeah, 6 foot. And he went, would you come for a casting? You know, I'm doing a movie. Originally, the movie was going to be called Diamonds before it was Snatch.
Diamonds, okay.
Yeah. And yeah. So I went along, met the great Brad Pitt, you know.
Oh, you met, so you did actually
met him straight away because he wanted to see the limb size, so everyone was bang on, same as Brad. Yeah. And we got close and we started training him. He couldn't do the natural movement that I could do the way. He wanted to do it himself first and me just choreographing. So he
seemed pretty good in the movie.
He's good, yeah, because that was me. James, come on, James. So we tried to get him to do it all on his own, me choreograph, me train him, what have you. But in the end, they said, listen, for the final scene, you have to put the wig on, the beard, the gypsy clothes, the Chelsea boots, the trilby, you know. So I'd done the final scene. I had to do it myself to make it more authenticious, if you like. But no, it was definitely a great experience, you know.
Oh, I can imagine.
Great experience, man.
How long was shooting? How long were you there for?
I probably trained them 6 weeks and then shooting for about 2 or 3 weeks, something like that, you know, until we got it right. But the fight scenes were good. They actually employed me because the other one they done before, Fight Club, they weren't too convinced on the fight scenes.
Oh.
They weren't too convinced, you know. And Gypsy Prize fight, I mean.
I mean, in all fairness, Fight Club is more like amateurish.
Yeah, it's rough and ready, but
it's not seemed a lot more in the seemed to be more focused on the discipline of the fighting. Did you at least get a nice little paycheck for the work?
Yeah, I don't know what I should have got. Nothing near his paycheck, but hey, it was good. Obviously, I met Madonna because she was with Guy Ritchie back then. Brad was with Jennifer Aniston back then.
Jesus.
So I met her. Madonna's little daughter, Lourdes, nowadays is like in her 20s, I think, yeah. But she was a baby back then.
You never thought about getting like back into movies? Did you ever have any other offer? Or?
Well, listen, I was actually training Frank Grillo. He was here for the Hounds of War movie.
He was, yes.
So Frank was here with me for a good month in tents. He was actually here a lot longer shooting, doing the movie. But then, I'll tell you a funny story. They actually tried to keep me and Frank away from each other. Me being a bit, I don't know, you man. How you say? And my reputation, or my look, sorry, had been roughed off and looking nasty and what have you. They kind of tried to keep me away from Frank.
Yeah.
And Frank's a bit crazy as well, you know. He's a lovely guy. He's a bit wild as well.
I remember you guys put a post.
I tell you what, he's a lovely guy. He was training with me every day. But the production team were actually trying to keep us apart. And in the end, they went, listen, don't take me to any more boxing trainers. I want Scott Dixon. I know he's the best. Give me the best.
How did he find you, though? If production wanted to keep you away, how did you end up in your gym?
We have a mutual friend, a guy called Lee Charles, who's an actor also, and he was on the movie. And he went, listen, I see you training with these other guys. You need to train with Scott Dixon. If you're going to train boxing, Scott Dixon brought boxing here and raised the game again. So you need to train with Dixon. Okay. So in the end, they gave up and they put us together. And we were together every day, man. Proper bromance, mate. What a laugh this guy is.
In fact, you guys had even put up a post and the Rock commented.
Of course. It's nice to be appreciated, you know.
Yeah, of course, especially...
And he messaged me yesterday again. He messaged me most days. Good, so he's going to come back in the summer, maybe for 6 weeks. Do a little training camp, get together, see how it goes. But a lovely guy.
Maybe bring him on as a guest for our podcast.
Why not? Anything for you, Jamesy boy. Anything for you.
No, but I mean, at this point, even the way you're talking, you're no longer the collection of fights you had. Mm-hmm. You can no longer call it like a period of time. It's a career. It's legacy at that point. You know,
absolutely.
You actually have something to. You actually there's weight to the name Dixon.
That's
you know,
it. Absolutely.
Now, we're obviously it's nice to talk nice, but we need to address a few elephants in the room.
Let's go for it.
One of them, your friends trying to murder you.
Well, these things happen, eh?
Personally, not to me.
Not every day, James. Listen.
I've never, except for when we play Monopoly, I've never had any friends.
No, nothing that bad, James.
Who had homicidal intentions.
It must be a geography problem. It's where I come from, you know. But anyway, let's go back to that story. Back in 2004, now I just fought the week before against a guy called Matthew Macklin. I'd been stopped on a bad cut eye. I was in front in the fight. The fight got stopped because of the bad cuts and what have you. Anyway, I was in great condition, you know. So I was putting my car in the lockup in my garage, and the next minute I see my 3 best friends sitting in the car. And I go, boys, 2 minutes. You know, I kind of waved to them.
So you had known them for a while?
I grew up with these guys. This is the ultimate betrayal, right?
Jesus Christ.
So anyway, I turn around and see the car. Give me 2 minutes, boys, just closing the shutter door. And bang, with a baseball bat. One of them hits me in the side with a baseball bat. They drag me in a car. And I'm in the back of the car. They're hitting me with hammers on the knees. They're stabbing me. And I'm in shock. I'm like, I couldn't, boys, what are you doing? I'm just, you know, I used to break bread with these guys. My granddad trained these 3 boys that I grew up with. And I was just in shock. They took me to the countryside. They got me into a field. They got me out of the car. And I went, listen, now it's now or never. I was shocked. I couldn't believe it. It was, like I say, the ultimate betrayal. And I'm going, boys, what you doing? What you doing? Bang, with a hammer, they opened my head.
Jesus Christ.
They stabbed me. I was actually stabbed 18 times in total. Hit me with baseball bats. So I thought, listen, I've got to make a run for it. I went to make a run away from them. I broke free. One of them hit me with a baseball bat on the shins. And then I heard two bangs, boom, boom. They shot me twice in the legs. So he shot me twice, stabbed me 18 times, broke both my arms with baseball bats, fractured my skull with hammers, stabbed me through the hands, through the feet. They done a real... So in the end, I thought, I'm dying here. I'm dying. I played dead. And then I heard one say, the bastard's dead. They jumped in the car and they gone.
They left you there?
They left me. I'm going on, man. I opened my eyes. And it's funny, I was in so much pain. The body's in so much shock, James. And I was in the middle of it. I knew because we were going to the outskirts of my town, Hamilton. We were in the countryside, so I knew the location was because I used to run that route every morning, James. So I'm lying in the field and I could hear the cows mowing and you say stupid things when you're in shock and you're in pain. You say stupid things to yourself. And I remember saying, oh, what a beautiful night. You know, I'm looking at the stars. Starts raining, James. Starts raining. So now I'm lying, the rain's all over me, I'm soaking, and I'm going, I need to get out of here. What am I going to do? Try to stand up, take one step, boom, fall over. Everything's broken, James.
Christ.
And I thought, I'm not going to make this. So I just kind of closed my eyes. Someone says to me, wake up. I heard the voice say to me, wake up, wake up. And I opened my eyes, startled, you know. And I'm going, I'm in and out of consciousness, and I can die right there, James. And I hear a voice in my head, sing. Now, sing. Now, I can't remember any songs. Nothing's coming into my mind. Song, sing. What the f am I going to sing? What am I going to sing? Now, I remember the song from school, Sunday school. One more step along the world we go. And I'm going, right, okay, so I started saying, but I only could remember the first part, one more step along the world we go. And repeat. So I started crawling on my hands and knees up the middle of this country road. Now, bear in mind, I need to stay in the middle of the country road because if at the side are ditches, so if I go too close to the left or the right, I'm going to fall in the ditch and I'll never get out, you know? So I stay in the middle. Now, if a car comes, and bear in mind, if a car comes, it's going to run straight over the top of me. I just had to take that chance. I just crawled and I could see a light in a farmhouse in the distance. Anyway, I posed myself up to the window of the farmhouse. Now, it must have been like a horror movie scene, James.
Of course.
There's a guy lying on the sofa. And he's like, he's kind of half sleeping. So I'm up at the window with the blood all over the window, banging the window. And I see his eyes open as if he's seen a ghost. And he's shouting, Sandra! He's shouting for the wife. She comes out, and right away I'm lying at the front doorstep. I said, my name's Scott Dixon, I've been vicious. She went, Scott Dixon? She went, it turned out that day, because I'd heard back then, I'd actually been to her, this man and woman's daughter, she was my hairdresser.
No
Leanne,
way.
yeah, a very good friend of mine. So, and she went, oh, you're Leanne's friend. They phoned Leanne. Leanne comes up. She's vomiting. She can't believe what's happened to me, you know. Anyway, I gets to hospital. I died on the operating theatre. My heart stopped and they got me back.
Your heart stopped?
They stopped. They got me back. Boom, they brought me back. And I'm here to tell the story, you know. It turned out those three guys...
I was going to ask, why would they do that?
I'm going to tell you the bad part. I told you the bad part. Now, these three guys I grew up with, right? So they were friends with I had two gangster managers at that time from Scotland, two twin brothers. And my contract had expired. So I told them, listen, My contract's expired. Thank you for the time we had together. We had some great fights. We had some great wins. I appreciate everything you've done for me. But I'm going to go back and do the rest of my career back in London. I miss East London, you know. And he went, listen, Scotty, if you leave us, you won't ever fight again. I went, oh, you're threatening me. I went, tell you what, go fuck both of you. I said, forget it. Anyway, that's how it came about. Now, my 3 best friends actually worked with them. They worked with them. They're in construction. They had businesses together with them. So it turns out that they had actually offered them an X amount of cash to get rid of me, and they accepted it.
Well, whereabouts are they? Were they brought?
Well, there was three of them. I think one of them took the blame and done a deal. I think he done about 5 years in prison. 5 years in prison. You know.
So the other
cowardly attack, just cowardly, you know.
So the other 2 are still out and about?
It looks that way. They're all out now because that was...
Can you go back to Scotland with this?
I can go back with a big smile on my face because I fear no man. I mean, but I'm getting scared. How you say? No scared of me because I only fear God, James. You understand? But what I would do if I go back and I see these guys, you understand?
What would you do?
I don't know. I don't know how I'd react. I don't know if I would...
Would you fight? Would you forgive? Would you
damage them? I don't know if I would grab them and cuddle them. I really don't know. I really don't know.
Of course. There's no frame of reference. You can't... It's not
you
like...
know,
It's not like
I don't know. I can plan it in my head, or I'd paint a masterpiece. I would, you know, I would go and settle the score. And then on the other flip of the coin, I say, you know what? I would do what Jesus wants me to do. I would go and I would... But I said, listen, don't speak. Give me a cuddle, you know? Maybe that's it. Maybe that's what I need to, you know?
Wow.
And my career was over back then. Obviously, it took me 18 months to start walking again. I was smashed to pieces. I have plates all over my arms, my legs, screws, plates.
You have plates?
Oh, man, I'm like Robocop, James.
So getting past security at a flight...
Metal detectors is a nightmare.
Jesus.
But hey, you know... Then the British Boxing Board of Control actually took my licence off me as a professional fighter because you're not allowed. Very, very strict. Very, very. They're very strict to be British Boxing Board of Control. They don't allow like.
Do they think that would put you at an advantage?
Pardon? I don't see how it can be an advantage. You know.
I mean, if someone goes to punch you and they punch metal instead of bone.
I don't know, James. Never really thought of that.
Maybe that's why.
Titanium, James, titanium.
So this message you have, this message that you want to do, you want to do like what Jesus did, forgiveness and stuff.
Listen, I think you have to forgive. Yeah, everyone's, you know, that's what I say. Listen, you know how I met Jesus? Want me to tell you that story? This is crazy. How would somebody... Jesus came for a sick, you know, right? How would a guy like me, if you look at me, maybe you could explain to the people, the viewers, or whatever, the listeners, what I actually look like. I look I suppose I look very intimidating. But if you get a chance to speak to me and get to know me and hear my story, I'm sure I can change anybody's opinion in the first couple of minutes, right?
So for those of you who are listening on our Spotify channel, Scott Dixon is a lovely looking man. Well bearded, some lovely facial hair. You wouldn't stop him at 2 a.m. if your car's broken down.
Forget it.
Nor would you ask him for help if his car's broken down.
No.
Because you'd be very sure that your childhood dog is in his trunk. But after talking to him, you will get to learn that he is indeed a lovely man. And when you look at him, you'll realize that he is very much fit for boxing, maybe not so much for banking or insurance claims.
Thank you, James. Thank you, brother. The picture has been painted.
Yes. So you're not just a boxer, you're a dad.
Yes.
Tell me about your kids.
I've got 2 boys and 2 girls. My youngest girl, Ella, she's 7. Mason's 8 years old. Toby's 14. And Sydney Rose is 19. Did I get it right? Yep, 19.
19. And I remember meeting Toby.
Toby, yes.
When he was 3.
Yeah, man. Toby's 15 now, Toby. 15 now.
Because
What a boy, what a character.
I still remember we had a very crazy night in Portugal with John Burns, and we took a bus. We got a bus with you to go back to get you back to your apartment.
Yeah.
And I remember little Toby, 3 years old.
Good. He's some boy. He's actually a big fan of yours, James.
Is he?
Yes, like you never believe. If you appreciate the mention, that's for sure.
Really like Toby, you. This one goes out for you. Nice little shout out. Yours truly. Thanks for watching.
He loves your humor, loves the way you speak. A big fan, James. Big fan.
You are. Can I call you? Is it appropriate if I call you a born again?
Yeah, born again Christian. Absolutely.
When did that happen?
Listen.
Where were you in your life when you found Jesus?
This is unbelievable. This is a cracker, James. I was in New York, Saturday, 16th of March, 1999. Evander Holyfield was fighting Lennox Lewis for the heavyweight championship of the world. I was with the biggest gangsters in London.
In New York?
In New York.
Sounds like a movie.
Mate, I was walking down Broadway. We're all sooted and booted. And even my grandfather was there. We bought him a Union Jack suit. It was like the sequin, and man, everybody was stopping him, taking pictures. You know, he was a real...
You bought a Union Jack pattern.
A suit with a Union Jack on it, sequin with the different colours, the blue, the red, the white. He looked $1 million, you know. And we were walking down Broadway and all these big arch criminals, you know. But listen, when I say arch criminals, that wasn't my choice. Boxing and these kind of guys go hand in hand. Even in football, boxing, gangsters, they're all hand in hand, you know. I don't mean the boxer or the footballer becomes crooked or, you know. But they're always seen at events together. That's just always been the stigma, I feel like. And we're walking down Broadway. So I looked across the street in Broadway, and at the walkway sign, walk, don't walk, I saw the image of Christ, a man dressed in a tunic with a beard on my ears on my arms. And I'm looking at this man and I'm saying, now the devil tells you this, now you start to question yourself, you say, what's he done? He must have escaped from a mental asylum, you know. It must be. What's he done? But nobody else was looking at this guy. You know, like if you walk past a guy dressed as the image of Christ, you would look. You'd take a second glance, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Nobody was doing it. And he was just staring directly at me. And I stopped, and the big London boys, what are you doing? What are you doing? And I went, you look as if you saw a ghost. I went, I don't know. I think I did, you know. And he went, come on, let's go. Anyway, I walked about 10 yards and my feet stopped. I looked back and he wasn't there. But I couldn't take another step. And I turned round and I seen a shop, a T-shirt shop, James. And remember the Pepsi logo?
Yeah.
Pepsi, the choice of all generations. The T-shirt said, Jesus, the choice of all generations. I go in the shop, buy the T-shirt, put it in my suit jacket, and I go out the garden. Anyway, I'm back in London 2 weeks later training for a world title fight. And there was a great preacher in the gym, born again man. Jimmy Tibbs, the famous Jimmy Tibbs, he's a famous boxing coach, trained Nigel Benn, all the top world champions. And he went, Scott, are you found Jesus? And I'm wearing the Jesus T-shirt training. I went, Jimmy, I never knew I'd supposed to be looking for him. He said, well, he found you, brother. You got one foot in the kingdom there. Sits me down, starts explaining the gospel. I starts going to gospel church with him and learning about Christ, how he came for the sake, how the Bible states, everybody will have a chance to know me before I come again, you know. And that was my encounter with Jesus. Anyway, later on, my auntie died, 9/11 terrorist attacks. My auntie was having...
She died in 9/11?
But no, they actually died on the same day.
Ah, okay.
She was having a triple bypass or a heart bypass.
I mean, that's still bad.
And she passed away. But it was on 9/11, that's how I remember that date. And I was broken. So my Uncle Jimmy, I was fighting the next week for the world title, a big important fight, but I was deflated, James.
Of course.
And I had my faith in Jesus, and I was praying and help me, and, you know, help me, God, help me get through this. And my Uncle Jimmy came down to visit me. And he took me up to London West End, so we goes up the West End, James. And we're walking through Leicester Square, And there's this guy standing on a box. The end of the world is nigh. Repent now and ye shall be saved. He was a preacher, you know, just an average man. Standing on a box, preaching the gospel. And me and Uncle Jimmy stopped because he was Christian boy as well. And we're watching this guy. Everybody's walking past him. It's pouring a rain. Next thing I feel a hand on my left shoulder. And I feel the peace go through my body. Really go through my body, you know. Like the Holy Spirit. And I turn around. And I see the same image I saw, the same guy I saw in New York.
In New York, the same,
but Christ, I saw Jesus. But the tunic, exactly the way you see him, how the image of Christ is portrayed. And with the beautiful eyes, so much love and compassion. And he walked away from me, and I can't speak. I can't get anything out. I turn around to my Uncle Jimmy. My Uncle Jimmy turns around to me, and we both say at the same time, that was Jesus. He saw him as well, you know.
He saw him as well?
He saw it as well. That was our time, you know. And I felt the peace go through my body. I fought next week for the world title, won.
You won?
Yeah.
Wow.
You know, but I was a broken man. He came and he fixed me, he healed me. Feel like, yeah, he healed me. Man, Jesus came for the sick, James. 100%. 100%.
Damn.
I'm nowhere I need to be, but praise the Lord, I'm nowhere I used to be. You understand? It's a process. Takes time.
Yeah.
You know? Definitely, James.
Now, before we conclude, just have to ask, what is one thing you wish I asked you?
I don't know, James. That's a very expansive question, you know.
So there wasn't anything that you were hoping to talk about.
Anything else up your sleeve? Because I know you, James. You've always got something now. Come on, ask away, James.
Guys, that's our time for today. Thank you so much. Stay tuned. Scott, thank you so much for being here today. Thank you for putting in your time.
It's a pleasure to be here, James.
And I'm sure that our listeners and viewers are going to find your story extremely interesting. And honestly, good luck with your weigh-in tonight. Good luck with your next fight, and good luck for the next 100 fights. I'm sure you have them in you.
And tune in tomorrow, folks, for the Scott Dixon show.
For the Scott Dixon, we're going to put a dash cam in his car and then place him in heavy traffic and just see what happens.
Don't try this at home, kids.
Guys, that's our time for today. Thank you so much for watching. This episode was brought to you by Business Labs. If you want to tune in for more podcasts and more shows, don't forget to follow Misfit on social media. Thanks for watching. Until next time.